Welcome back to episode 280 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, it's exactly that tonight. It's flowing beer, and that is what we're talking about. Unfortunately, folks, there's no Gaz again. I can be pleased to tell you he will be back next week. He has promised me that. Maybe something to do with the fact that we've been sent some free beer by Brew 61 that he didn't want to miss out on. Who knows? But who can blame him? Free beer. But beer is what we're talking tonight, and we're joined by Tim. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do, dude.
Yeah, no stress, Beans. But first off, thanks for having me, mate. Very, very much appreciate it. My name's Tim. I go by the brand Weaver, and I am a brewery brand strategist, designer, and consultant. So, in short, that means not only do I make breweries visually look good, but they sound good. They say the right things to the right people at the right time and in the right place.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty grandiose thing to do as well, to be honest with you. And if you're going to be working in an industry, then beer and brewing, something that you're passionate about, that's got to be exciting, hasn't it?
Mate, I describe it as my ikigai. You know, that thing where it's what you love, it's what you're good at, it provides value, and it can pay you. Like, it's the perfect Venn diagram crossover for me. I couldn't be a happier bunny with what I do in my life, for sure.
No, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. If you can get paid for doing what you enjoy, then you ain't really got a job, have you? That's the old saying or something like it.
Exactly. Yeah. What is it? Find something you love and you don't have to work a day in your life or something.
Yeah, you put it a bit better there than I did. So how did you get into that then, if you don't mind my asking?
No, ask away, mate. So I've been in the creative industry for 18, 19, probably nearly 20 years now. Like straight out of university, I was doing design jobs, working in e-commerce, like online fashion stores and things like that. And moved from agency to agency, kind of went up the ranks ultimately into becoming creative director of an international agency. It was a niche agency, not beer, but education. And I was working with a load of independent schools all over the globe, helping them to tell their stories, web design, photography, creative campaigns, all social media, all that stuff. And after what was clocking 10 years of building a team, like 50 people strong, I was like, can't do schools anymore. I've had enough of that. So I had like two options. I could either jump ship to another agency, be a creative director there, or actually go, right, I'm going to start my own thing. And in a moment of insanity, I went, yeah, I'm going to start my own thing, see how we crack on. And I started out not niching. Like, I kind of committed career suicide. Like, I just spent 10 years in education, swore I was never going to work with them again. My little black book had no one in it. And so I started to reach out to anyone and everyone, kind of going, oh, really respect what you do, really like what you do. Within the end of my first year of working as the brand weaver, I'd worked with DC Comics, the BBC, Strictly Come Dancing, Disney, Kamado Joe, Masterbuilt, a couple of breweries, but tattoo artists, like all these things I absolutely love and I'm passionate about. And then a little bit after that, I knew the benefit of niching. I was like, what do I really, really love? Who do the people I've really enjoyed working with? And it was the beer and brewing sector. And
Wow.
so that's, chips all in on that ultimately.
I mean, that's a pretty A-list selection of clients that you had there. You know, if you were to pick some of the biggest names out there that are interesting as well, like DC Comics and what have you, and Disney, they're names we all know. Those are big brand names.
Dude, that, like 14-year-old Tim, like if he had heard of what I would have achieved in the first year, he would have been like, sod off, old man. Like I had to constantly pinch myself when, like, someone picked up the phone and they were like, you got a spare couple of days? So like, yeah, what's the project? I was like, oh, it's this Batman thing. I was like, what? Okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that. That's fine.
That's mad.
Yeah.
That's mad. And to be honest, see, my wife did illustration at university.
Amazing.
Yeah, and she wanted to go down those kind of routes herself. And I got to tell you, and she found it very, very difficult to find a way into the industry. Now, as it just so happens, she took a part-time job working for a bank, and that just turned out okay for her, as it just so happens. But you know what I mean? It's a very, very difficult industry to get into, isn't it?
It is, if you kind of go with those big kind of romantic ideals of, I'm going to step out of university and I'm going to be an illustrator for kids' books, or I'm going to be a designer for Nike, or or I'm going to go and work for a big London agency. And I don't know, there's something about my outlook. Like, I never wanted to go and work in a big London agency. I didn't like the idea of a commute or anything like that. And I just wanted to be in an environment that felt creative and I could learn from. And realistically, like, it all led up to what is, I suppose, that aspirational, romanticized version of running an agency that I'm doing now. I just had to put around about 15 to 20 years worth of graft into it before getting there.
Well, I mean, that's a valuable lesson for anybody listening to this is, yes, you can have your dreams, but you can't expect to just walk out of university into them. You've got to put a lot of hard work into it, and that's the truth about anything, isn't it?
Do 100%. And me personally, and I've gone down a record and they're saying loads of times, but for me, going to university didn't help me advance my career into the creative industry. Like, I was at uni 3 days a week, but I got a junior design internship for the other 2 days a week. And what I learned there didn't cost me 30 grand in debt and taught me so much more than I picked up in 3 years, versus everyone else coming out of university trying to find a placement. I already had one. I'd been there for 2 years. And so that's a lot of what I preached when I was at the agency and had people, working with me. I would go out to the universities and offer them positions and be like, let me help complement your studies. And a lot of those guys became some of my best team members at the previous agency.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's true as well. There's traditionally, there's always been seen to be two routes into business, isn't there? There's getting a trade and working through it that way. Or, as you can tell by my grey whiskers, we were always told by the school, you need to get a job, or you need to go to university. Didn't fancy getting a job, so I did the same. I went to university. My brother went to university. His lad's coming up to that sort of age now when he's just finishing school and he's looking at what he's going to do. And university's not on the agenda for him. You know what I mean? He wants to go out there and find his way a different way. You can follow that sort of path.
Mate, I think there are so many more options available to kids now of university age. And personally, I think there are very few careers now that you do need to go to university for. You want to become a doctor, you want to become a lawyer, you want to become something highly academic. Yeah, I reckon uni's probably a good shout for you. But, if you want to do something with your hands, if you want to do something in the development world, something which is in front of a computer, YouTube is one of the best educators out there now. You've just got to have the mindset to sit down and be able to learn from it.
Yeah.
Like, people build houses just using YouTube content. Christ, you can get a job using it as well.
Yeah, well, I've got to be honest. If ever I want to do anything, the first thing I do is I'll just load up YouTube, watch a video on how to do it, and then do a half-assed job of it.
Or even better now, you take a photo of it and upload it to AI and go, where have I gone wrong? And it goes, you muppet, you've done it like this.
Well, that's interesting. I was going to get to, we brought up AI there and what have you, but I was going to ask later. So brewing and the element that you work with within brewing, AI, how big of a part is it playing in terms of design, and how big of a part will it play in design and in terms of the actual brewing itself, do you think?
Well, okay, that's a big conversational topic. Let's try and break it down a little bit. So from a visual side of things, like can design, bot design, pump clip design, you're seeing it more and more. Like, so I was up in Liverpool last month at BeerX, which is run by SIBA, the Society of Independent Brewers. It had 80 odd independent brewers on tap, and you could go down the line and go, I know what I'm looking for. Like, that's an AI one. That's an AI one. They were coming up more and more often. And I get it, especially in the brewing industry where breweries, they're not exactly flush with cash. They're not, making buckets and buckets, loads of money. So if they can save themselves a couple of £100 by running it through AI, you're going to do it, I should imagine. And that's for your smaller, really strapped indies. For someone such as myself, I use AI in my work, but it's never like, just design me a bottle design. I use it in the way that designers might use stock photography. And so for those people who are listening and watching, the idea of stock imagery and stock photography is, say you're making a wonderful collage of a mermaid swimming through the sea and you need a shark in the background. Now, you're not going to go and draw a shark pixel by pixel looking photo perfect. You're going to go to a stock image website, go, that's a good looking shark, and I'm going to edit it into the composition to look like it exists there. I use AI to give me the right looking shark in this scenario for the environment. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle in that respect. And then from a marketing and content creation perspective, you see more and more of it. You can read Instagram posts and be like, ChatGPT wrote that text bit there, didn't they? Beautiful, lovely. You've seen content creators starting to put fancy photos of digital attractive women holding a pint glass out and getting likes on it. And you're like, oh great, we've gone back a couple of years, well done team. And then you've got the other things of like breweries using AI to automate and streamline and optimize. Now that's not my area of specialism, the actual brewing stuff, but there's going to be a huge amount of wins there where you can think about if you've got AI going, oh yeah, perfect temperature, don't need that much, drop in, drop out, or even from like a trading and a stock supply side of things where someone's running low there and you can trade in between. There's a huge opportunity to revolutionize the back end operations of brewing with AI. It just takes more intelligent people than I am in order to do it.
Well, you say that, to be fair, but I think, in terms of what you do, you got to be pretty sharp and pretty switched on to get to where you have been, especially focusing on an area, like you say, where the breweries aren't exactly strapped for cash, especially the more independent breweries as well. It's challenging, their product is a little bit more niche. It's difficult to get it out there. And yeah, you can understand why they would use AI. I get it. We use it for the image that we create for our podcast imagery, in terms of the stuff that we did to advertise this. So if you're watching this on YouTube, those beer cans aren't real. We haven't produced a range of Tall Boy Radio beer. We did actually a couple of years ago, and it was bloody awful. We made them. We're not, we've learned from that mistake. Nobody bought it, and I tasted it, and I didn't want to buy it, and I bloody paid for it. You know what I mean? So yeah, nothing's perfect, but yeah, we did it because it helps us to avoid copywriting concerns as well. In the past, we'd use different images. We never had any copyright concerns. Please don't look into that, lawyers. But it just covers your own arse, and it makes life a lot easier for us. And, we are an independent podcast, and we don't intend to make any money out of it, which is good because we're not making any money out of it. But yeah, so you're quite right there. I can see how those would be beneficial, and it does make sense that you'd use it for that sort of. Do you ever use it at all just for bouncing ideas to create stuff for you at all?
Not to create ideas, no. So like probably 80% of my work is using my brain to connect the dots. Like it's creativity, there's an alchemy to it where you're like, okay, then this is what they're good at, this is what people are looking for, and this is what their competitors are saying. Where do I play in that sphere to create something unique and stand out? And ultimately it needs to come from a point of human because it's got to connect with humans. You're not trying to sell beer to robots or just the generic public. It's a particular type of person you're connecting with. What I use AI for is dictating to it. Like I get so fed up with typing. So I'll just dictate what I want to say. And it goes, yes, that's where you put the punctuation in there, Tim. Don't forget your capital letter, monkey boy. And it saves me so much time because I can dictate to it. Like, those emails that you always have to write and you're like, Christ, if I sit here and write this email, it's going to take me 20 minutes, right? 3 minutes and I'll have that bad boy done because I've talked out what I want to say and it is me. It's just structured it a little bit better.
No, I might start using that myself, to be honest with you.
Give it a pop, mate.
I need to. Those 20-minute emails will take me about half an hour because I'll phase out about halfway through and find myself staring at the wall.
Start writing your Tesco shopping list halfway through and be like, yeah.
Drives me mad. That kind of stuff does. So in terms of another level of your creativity as well, and some of the topics that we're going to touch on tonight, then you have a podcast as well. Did you want to tell us a little bit about that? I'm interested in terms of, we do a podcast because we do a podcast, but it's not unusual for businesses such as yourself to do a podcast to get that level of engagement as well and to get attention to yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so it was set up from a purely selfish standpoint, for sure. And it was never, it was an unintentional podcast because it started on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, I really want to grow my LinkedIn network a bit more because, again, I went through and deleted all the school contacts and wanted to build more brewery people into it. I was like, how am I going to do this? Well, I could have live chats with other brewery people. And logically, then they know who I am and, spread the word and so on and so forth. I was like, oh, that was cool. Did a couple of those, managed to get a couple of people in board, maybe 4, 6 different chats, one each week. I was like, okay, that's cool. It's only on LinkedIn. Like, if someone wants to watch it back, they've got to go and find me on LinkedIn and got to navigate halfway down the page, find the button that says events, which no bugger does, by the way. And then they can watch it again. I was like, oh, I probably want to do this better. So then I kind of went, okay, let's stream it on a couple of different platforms, just like you guys do. So I LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. So I might as well record it now as well. I was like, well, it's recording now. Might as well chop off the beginning and the end and upload it to Spotify and all that lot. Might as well stick it on YouTube. Might as well trim it. Might as well send out an email newsletter. And 12. I know, no, it's not nowhere near 12 months. Actually, probably 5 or 6 months down the line. It's been fantastic. I've had incredible conversations with some really, very high up people in the brewing industry, like the chief marketing officer of Peroni, for example, like I had on the show for 40 minutes. I've got the owner of Brixton Brewery coming on in a couple of weeks' time. There's an exclusive, haven't announced that one. And I've got a couple of other big names that I'm talking to that I'm locking in. And it's been really interesting, like going out to events and they're like, oh, Tim, love the podcast. Thanks for all your help. Like when I go to brewery specific events, like one event I was at and one evening, this guy absolutely off his nut clocked me in the bar and laid it over to me and hugged me. It's like, mate, thank you so much. I was like, what on earth have I done? He's like, your stuff has really helped my brewery. I was like, oh, great. Okay. You've just seen my content or you're listening to the podcast. I haven't done something which I don't remember. But it was so rewarding to get that genuine feedback and response from people because much like you do with the show, you put it out into the ether and you might get the odd like button or comment, but is it having an impact? You don't know. And fast forward, I've now got a show sponsor again, which was hilarious. Never thought I'd have that, but that really helps. And it just continues to grow my awareness, but ultimately bring value to the brewing community. Because I probably should have started with this. Like my show is all about branding for breweries, and it covers the branding side of it, storytelling, marketing, sales. I've had guests discussing like how to capture the best photography, how to optimize your tap room, how to make more inclusive spaces, how to post on social media. Nothing from the operational side of things or anything like that. But the whole idea of the podcast is I want someone to come on for 40 minutes and the people listening, I want them to leave with at least one thing they can take away and go, I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to try it. And it's working. And I've been told like brewers, especially small bands, 2 or 3 members, they're out doing their deliveries, they're dropping off the kegs. And what are they doing? They're putting branding for breweries on in the van whilst they're driving around listening to it. I was like, perfect. I'll take that.
That's amazing. I mean, and that's true though. I mean, people who are in that industry, especially like you say at the tail end of it, they're in it because they love it and they're passionate about it, and they're going to consume content like yours. We've had a couple of guests on in the past. Now they're not going anymore, unfortunately. But Double Trouble Gin. It was as we talked before we started. I used to play a little bit of darts, and it was a gin that was branded around darts, and then they sort of branched out a little bit and did a couple of beers, and they were very, very passionate about it. It was something they did as a project. It's looking to maybe take it on to do something full time. They didn't. They both had full-time jobs, and they didn't. But we had a lot of fun with them. They ended up on Dragon's Den. We had them on. Yeah, we had them on the day before they were on Dragon's Den and gave them a right good grilling. Told them we wouldn't invest, so it was a nice little insight as to what was to come.
Brutal. Well, at least they had a warm up, didn't they?
Oh yeah, they did. They did. I don't think we were quite as mean as some of the dragons on there, though. To be fair. So yeah, so your podcast has covered some great topics as well, and that's really what we want to talk to you about. So we've done quite a few episodes on beer. We've had brewers on in the past, and like I say, next week we've got Brew 61. We've got someone coming on from them who's also called Tim, funnily enough.
I've spoken to Tim. I know him well.
There you go. We'll be speaking to him next week, and we'll be taste testing some of his beers, which they were kind enough to send us. So yeah, that's the sort of element that we've done. But I was curious to get your take on it, much more from the marketing aspect of it, because that's a big part of beer sales. And one of the things that you did say in terms of cans is, so when people look at the can of beer, they're not just looking at the ABV on the back. It's normally where I look first. But there has to be something about that can that pulls you in, hasn't there?
Yeah, 100%, bud. I call it the 2-pint rule. I didn't coin that. Someone else told me it, and I thought it was great, so I'm going to steal it and use it forevermore. A guy called Matt from Stout, by the way, so there's a shout out to him. But the idea being, the first pint you sell through branding and marketing, right? You look at the can, you go, like the look of that, or I've heard something about that, or my mate told me about these guys, or that name's really funny, I got to give that one a shot, or that's caught my attention first. The second pint is then based on the quality of the liquid. Yeah. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, I'll have a second pint. That's when the liquid kicks in.
Yeah.
But branding and marketing, in my opinion, it's 80% of it. Having a decent liquid, it's kind of ticket to entry these days, right? You've got to have a good liquid or else you're not getting past the first hurdle. A lot then comes into, well, people have got to know about it. You can have the best beer in the world, but if you're sat there in a shed not telling anyone, you ain't going to sell any.
True enough. True enough. And then, so it there's plenty of people out there as well, like you say, like ourselves and yourself, who are doing this independently. So we've got a guy on the podcast in the past called John Nickel. Don't know if you've ever seen his stuff on social media. So he tastes beers, puts it out there. If you remember any of the beer groups on Facebook, I guarantee you'll have seen this fella. He's a very affable, Geordie fellow, very avuncular, and we've had him on in the past talking about what he does. People like him will taste that beer. So I've watched his channel, and he's talking about the Chubbles beer that Cloudwater do every year. And I made sure as soon as he was talking about it that I picked it up this year and got myself a couple of them bad boys. And I tell you what, absolutely cracking beers they were too. But like you say, great entry point has to be beer's got to be good, because there's so much out there now that if it's not good, it's not going to get looked at, is it?
No, not at all. And this is the big thing is awareness and availability. Like you talk about Cloudwater releases and troubles, and that's kind of a niche indie beer right there, right? The people we talk to and the people you're interviewing, your Beer 61s and stuff, they're small breweries. And for 90%, 95% of the market out there, they don't care about that. They want their Peronis, they want their Madries, they want the standard lager that you're going to pick up at Tesco's or Sainsbury's. But for the other brewers, they're the ones who have to work really, really hard because they're trying to appeal to the 5%. It's a limited market. And or even worse, you're trying to convince the other 95% that your beer is worth a look in when they could just go and pick up, I don't know, 4-pack of Carling down at Tesco's. It's a struggle.
Oh yeah, it is. It is a struggle for sure. And there are a number of discerning drinkers out there who will turn their nose up at Carling or what have you, not to do them any harm, because there's clearly a very popular beer. It has its market out there, so I'm not going to knock them. Don't drink it myself, but that's another matter. So, in terms of yourself, then, what are you looking at? And don't give away all the tricks you tricks. You don't want somebody coming on here stealing all your ideas and doing what you do. What are you looking at? How are you making that beer more appealing with the marketing and with the product design?
So it's a lot of it starts with the strategy. It's the brain work. It's the thinking behind it before you look at the visuals or what you're going to put on social media or what you're going to write an email newsletter or put on a website. And a lot of it comes down to, and you say, don't want people to steal my stuff. If anyone follows me on LinkedIn, my whole process is there. Go and lift it, make a career out of it. It's fine. I've just done it for longer than you. So therefore I'm better than you, technically. Just saying. No, such an ego. But I start with the foundation of discovery sessions on like what makes the brewery different. What are their goals? How did they start out? What's the story? What are their other interests? Really soaking it up, being a sponge for that brewery, really immersing myself in brewery life there. I then want to talk to their consumers. So if they've got a tap room, I'm going to sit in there for a couple of hours. I'm going to be talking to the people in the tap room. I'm going to say, why are you coming here instead of like going down the road? I'm going to be going on Untapped. I'm going to be going on TripAdvisor. I'm going to be on the Facebook groups. I'm going to go everywhere I can to get a real vibe from the drinker's perspective about why they like that brewery. And the third part is going to do my research on the competition. If you want to stand out, if you want to be known for something, you don't want to say the same damn thing or look the same as your competitor down the road. And it all starts with that. Once I've got that kind of foundation of knowledge, I can start to build what I call like a brand story that helps them to really clearly communicate who they are, why they're different, why people should give them a go. And there's a load of elements that go into kind of the language and tone of voice. And again, coming back to the AI side of things, like, excuse me, tone of voice is so very important, right? You can read some wonderfully written content online these days, but it's very professional. 90% of it is written like an American. You can tell that the majority of it is written by AI. If a brewery or any brand for that matter of fact has a tone of voice, a way that they talk, you almost don't need to read the brewery's name in a piece of copy if they've got it right, because you know it's them talking. Like the example I've used a lot is if Yoda, Star Wars, small green little guy, if he opened a brewery, and he wrote a piece of copy, you would not need to read that it was the Yoda Brewery in that piece of copy for it to be his brewery. So we develop a tone of voice and writing and what to say and how to say it and where to say it. We look at the touch points. So how do you leverage social media beyond, this is the beer that we've got coming out, and we've got a pizza truck outside the brewery on Saturday, or we've got an acoustic singer-songwriter rocking up and singing for 3 hours about how they've just broken up with their partner. Yay, because it's all rubbish and no one really bloody cares. What we want is to build depth into that story and actually give real reasons that people might connect and engage. And so that's kind of driving awareness right through to creating loyalty. So beer memberships, beer clubs, perks, what could you get? What could you give your drinkers? And no one else can, because it's not right to their brand, but it's perfect for yours. And then after all of that, you look at the visuals, because you can only really then craft something going, well, this is the kind of person I want to drink my beer. This is what they're used to seeing. This is what they feel comfortable with. These are the places that they shop. These are the kind of brands they associate with. So we need to align with that kind of visual. We need to be part of that set, part of that tribe. And you take the identity and visuals from there and run free ultimately and have a great time doing it.
So storytelling is a big part of it then, isn't it?
Massive, mate. Massive. We, as humans, as creatures, we thrive on storytelling. People call it marketing, people call it sales, people call it, communications. It's telling a story, telling an engaging story that people believe, and it's authentic. Like, I never want to work with a brewery and say, oh, you should say this because people are going to love it, and it be false, because I don't want to do that myself. There was a time in my life when I was just starting the brand Weaver where I was like, oh, I've got to really be kind of quite icky in my language and really pushy in my sales. Is like, hey, I can make you 10 grand in 1 week just by applying these 5 simple rules. It's horrible, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like me. And people aren't going to engage with it because they know it's not you. And I don't want to be known for that. And so whenever I talk to my brewery clients, I'm saying, like, these are the things we need to start pushing and promoting. I want them to believe it. I want them to feel it. And so that story is authentic and it's engaging. On social media these days, people can spot a fake from a mile off. They just turf you out without a second chance. So you've got to come across authentically and tell that wonderful story that only you can.
That's good advice. And to be honest with you, not just for brewing, to be honest with you, it gives me something to think about and how we market the podcast sometimes, because that's one of the things I know we can do better. But it's finding time. That's the biggest challenge for myself. That's me just chucking my excuses out there right away.
Go for it, man.
So the other thing there that you mentioned as well in that is tap rooms.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Tap rooms are a big part of it now. If we go back, I don't know, certainly when I were a wee lad and I first started trying to, getting into pubs with my fake ID at the age of 14 or what have you. Tap rooms weren't the thing. Boozers were just straight boozers back then. That's making me sound old, isn't it? But yeah, boozers. But now I do love a tap room. So I mentioned Cloudwater there. I think November last year we did the Cloudwater Brewery tour. Fantastic. It's a great beer. I love the beers that they produce out of there. Anyway, I probably count on one hand the amount of Cloudwater beers that I haven't enjoyed, and it was a great experience. The Titanic's very local to us. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. It's a Stoke one.
Yeah.
I've done that brewery tour a number of times. The Plum Porter, one of my favorite beers.
They have known for, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly what they were known for. I think literally they were saying the last time we were there, and I think that accounts for about 90% of their production is their Plum Porter. And if you've ever had the chance to try it, the one that they do at Christmas, and I wish they would do it all year round, the port infused one, the Grand Reserve, you need to try that. It's phenomenal if you've not tried it. Amazing, love that beer. 6.5%, so we're talking the right percentage. 4.9 of the regular beer is just a little bit too weak for me. So we're right in the butter zone there. I got distracted there talking about beer. That's not like
so you're drifting off, going, "Oh, Christmas, come on."
I did, yeah. Start to drool a little bit. So yeah, the tap rooms. Then, how big of an experience is tap rooms in terms of how a brand markets itself?
Massive, and especially these days as well. You look at the latest data that's coming out around the changing habits in drinking culture and younger generations, Gen Z, for example, who don't drink as much and practice more mindful drinking, or those people who zebra stripe, which is have one alcoholic drink and then one non-alcoholic drink and kind of alternate between the two. What you're finding is more and more people are picking a venue to go to based on the activity and the vibe of what that venue provides. They're not picking a venue because they serve that particular beer. Yeah. The beer, again, is a bonus. And so tap rooms are crucial in a number of ways for breweries. One is where they're going to make the most profit. I mean, Christ, you've got these stats are nowhere accurate, but say you make 10p on a pint in a pub, you're going to make 80p plus, even more, in your own tap room. So it's a no-brainer that way. But then it's a place that you own and you can create that vibe and it reflects your brand. But again, breweries need to work harder in their tap rooms. Instead of doing the standard singer-songwriter night, the pizza van, they need to do things that will attract an audience that they're trying to bring in. Like, there's some great examples. Where was it? There was a brewery in Philadelphia I was talking to probably a couple of months ago, but they did a Mario Kart tournament at their tap room. And that was on a Sunday night. And they took 60% more profit on a Sunday than they ever had done before. 50% of those drinkers that walked through the door were Gen Z, which is the biggest volume of Gen Z they'd ever had through the door as well, just because they put the right event on. And then there was a pub down in Bristol, and they had a Beyblade tournament. For people who don't know what Beyblades are, they're the little spinny discs, and you kind of pull the wheel and they fire off and they bash against each other. My son plays with them, and he's nowhere near drinking age, but I think it came out when I was actually a lot younger. But things like that, there's more kind of almost nostalgic event things that you can do. Like some places will put on karaoke bingo, and it's just doing something which is a bit more fun and a bit more engaging. That's where you're going to start pulling people in. And you might put on a couple of duds, but Christ, at least you're going to start to build a reputation of a place where there's stuff happening, and you've got to keep an eye on that place, because something's going to pop up and it's going to be pretty cool. And so that's why they really need to invest that time in the events, in that space, and creating a place where people just go, yeah, I love going there every Saturday night. I don't even have that much to drink, but mate, the events they put on there are awesome. And I'll happily spend a tenner on a ticket there, even before I bought a beer or a pint of Coke.
That's solid advice. And like you say, just different events like that, sucking people in, and that ties in with your brand is a great way of doing things. But one of the things that you mentioned there is something, like you say, I'm definitely not Gen Z. I'm in my 50s, so call me what you will. I'm not a boomer.
Very
Really.
attractive 50-year-old. That's what we'll
Thank
call
you very much. Thank you very much. It's a lie, and it's the beer talking, but I'll take it. But no, I'm definitely a Gen Xer, and I'm very, very comfortable with that, and I'm getting grumpier by the day. But I can't get my head around, because I know, when I was a lad, when I was out, boozing and drinking, before I had kids and what have you, and the stuff that I used to do, still do when I'm away on a weekend, it's scary. And then when I hear about like my mates' kids and that, because they're all older, and the amount that they don't drink, I can't get my head around that. Is that a concern for brewers? That market could dry up a little bit.
So this is a really interesting one. There was a report that was released probably 2 weeks ago or so by a company called Roosters in the States. I posted about it on LinkedIn. And it delved into what they called the real reasons Gen Z aren't drinking. And some of the biggest things were mum's tracking them on their iPhone. Just mum knows where you are these days. Like, you don't want to get in trouble. Like you say, back in the day when no one was able to capture you doing all the absolutely stupid stuff on an iPhone and stick it up on TikTok, long gone. You're being documented. You've got Attenborough following you around left, right, and center and reporting on everything that you're doing. So that's one element to it. The other thing is they don't have the disposable cash. Now, people can argue that until they're blue in the face that, oh, well, actually, if you look at inflation, so on and so forth. But the report states they just didn't have enough money to go and do anything like that. But also what they start to insinuate is they're going to get there. They will at a certain point, maybe a little bit older than when we were doing it, but breweries just have to be ready to meet them when they get there. So is it a worry? To some extent, yeah, of course there's a worry, because at the younger generation, those going out on an absolute bender on a Friday night, keeping your tap room round until 2 a.m., that might not be a thing as it used to be. You have to think of those other events that are going to keep you there, like I was talking about earlier on. But it doesn't mean to say that these tap rooms and places are going to fall off the face of the earth because, you know, that drinker, that kind of consumer isn't there anymore. There are lots of other different consumers out there. And that tap room, you have to be able to evolve and dip and swerve for it to accommodate. I was talking to a gentleman called Aaron Gore on my show. He was having a conversation with the brewery owner, and the brewery owner was like, dude, I set up my brewery to make great beer and just share my beer with people that love it. And I'm sat here booking yoga right now. And I think that is like one of the biggest unfortunate kind of like statements, but like a shocking realization for most brewery owners out there, right? There's a big difference between a hobby brewery and a business brewery, right? If you're a business brewery, you're brewing for the people. Everything you're doing is about getting people through the door, and you have to do stuff that they like. If you're a hobby brewer, you crack on, you brew those mental things that only you and your dad will drink. That's absolutely fine because you're not trying to make a living out of it. If you want to keep the lights on and keep people coming in, you've got to embrace the audience and the change in the audience and do things that will continue to appeal to them.
Yeah, I mean, and that is important now as well. You know, one of the episodes that we are looking at trying to get done in the future as well is getting somebody on who runs one of these places and to, you know, we tried to get Della on who runs the beer emporium in Sandbach. Unfortunately, we picked her at a bad time because she just left, unfortunately, and. Yeah, so she's just to talk about the challenges that are facing these places at the moment, because financially, you know, they're certainly not getting any help off Keir Starmer and his buddies, or, you know, and to be fair, the Tories did him no favors before either, so I'm not going to nail my colours to either flag. But yeah, it's a very challenging environment at the moment, and so, you know, so health as well, health benefits, I think, you know, I think Gen Zers are certainly a lot more interested in the negative effects of alcohol on their system, certainly than I ever was, you know what I mean? It was a challenge just to see how much damage I could do to myself on a Saturday night. And I don't think that's the case anymore. So we're seeing a lot more segueing nicely into another one of your topics here of no alcohol and low alcohol products out there, aren't we?
Yeah, there's a growing increase in the low no movement. As the UK, we are behind a lot of other European countries out there. I think that's just because of our culture, because of the British culture. Like we're still the louts at heart. You know, a lot of us, not all of us. Clearly, I'm not tiring everyone with the same brush, but just a few of us. Um, but yeah, you are seeing that demand and that wave now of actually nice low and no beers. Like it's not just your ready Heineken Blue was the only thing that's available. Like Guinness like blew the doors wide open with Guinness Zero, something that actually tastes acceptable. It's done wonders for the Guinness brand and actually act as an introduction into the Guinness brand for a lot of people who knew of it but never were involved in it, if you know what I mean. But now the majority of breweries out there, a lot of breweries out there, I should say, probably not the majority, are catching on to the fact that if they don't have a low and no offering that they create, they at least need to be stocking something or a few options. I think the expectation of going, you have one non-alcoholic beer in your fridge in a tap room is not really acceptable anymore. Same for spirits, same for cider. You need a variation in there to accommodate for, like you say, the people who aren't drinking, or the designated drivers, or the people who are zebra striping, and those who are just putting in these different techniques and who want to moderate in their own way. It's a really interesting shift in consumer habits for sure.
It is, and like you say, the level of the product out there actually now, like you say, when you think back to Beck's Blue, and yeah, there was another one. I think it was Swan. Well, you know, back, you know, and Caliber was Caliber.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember those. That might be showing my age a little bit there, but they were bloody awful drinks. You know what I mean? Nobody ever drank them.
Mm.
Just, you know, unless you were driving, and it was literally like you almost come to a fist fight as to who's actually going to drive that night sometimes because the products were that bad. But I recently I went out and I was on a works night out, so I wanted to be on my best behavior, and I was driving. So I had Lucky Sant or Lucky Saint, however you pronounce it.
Like you're
And
saying, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and they had it on tap. And I tell you what,
Mm.
it was a cracking beer. I got in my car after that and thinking, I've had about 6 pints here. I'm not sure I should be driving because it was that good of a beer. You know, it didn't feel like a no alcohol beer. It was an absolute cracker of a beer. You
Yeah,
know,
I think there's a massive advantage to seeing a no or low alcohol beer being pulled on draft because there's that ritualistic nature where you're just like, it's now just on the same level as the other beers on the bar. It's not the one tucked in the fridge in the back left-hand corner that you got to bend down and pick up and like move the Copperberg out the way for. It's like it's there next to the other beers that you would order. And it was Ben Gibbs, Sober Boozers Club, who I was talking to about on the show. He's like, as someone who doesn't drink, you don't necessarily want to signpost that you're not having an alcoholic beer. You just want to be part of it. And so the fact that you've just got a pint in a glass, that's it, right? There's no other conversation about it. You go back to the Beck's Blue thing, like, are you carrying a Beck's Blue bottle around in the pub whilst your mates were chugging on pints? You're like, sorry about that. You know, I apologize. I'll just go and stand in the corner for a bit. But it just makes it more accessible. You know, it's the kind of the judgment between it being a low alcohol, no alcohol, or fully alcoholic, full fat drink, as it were. The conversation is removed because it's just liquid in a glass at that point.
Yeah. And like you say, you need a range of offers as well. So places like Brewdog, people have got their opinion on Brewdog. You know, they hit the headlines a couple of years ago in terms of, you know, the way that they operate. There's some questions there about the ethics and what have you. We're not going to get into that tonight. You know, we've stuck the boot to Brewdog a few times, but at the same time, I do love some of their beers. You know what I mean? They do some great beers. Are they getting it right with their low alcohol offering? Because, you know, they're some of their major brands that you'll recognize, like the Elvis Juice, the Punk, and the Hazy Jane. They do them now on an alcohol free. Is that what breweries need to be looking at?
I don't know if there's. I couldn't say what the right way or the wrong way is. Personally, for me, I think, you know, Guinness got it right, where it's just like Guinness and Guinness Zero. But that's because the brewery is known for one thing, and that's Guinness. Like, I almost feel that Brewdog didn't necessarily have to go out and make the 0%, the Punk AF, and, you know, the Punk, the alcohol free hazy. They could have released a range of alcohol free beers that weren't. It's this beer, but without the alcohol now. Almost kind of like separate out the experience a little bit. There's a great brewery, alcohol-free brewery called Mash Gang, doing incredible stuff. Just got kind of taken on in the States as well. But they do like cherry stouts, like you talked about plum porter. They do a phenomenal cherry stout, 0%, wicked looking can, like this deep maroon can with a skull hand holding 3 cards on it. And it just looks like a lush can. It's a lush beer. And it's not them going, oh, it's the 0% version of this. It's like, it's a drink. It's just a drink. It's a beer. It just happens to be 0% beer. Like that comparison of going, well, this is the low version of that. I don't know if it's the right way to do it. It's an easy option for people who are being introduced into the world of low-no, I think. But then for those people who maybe have been involved in it a little bit more and looking for a little bit more of a broader experience, and those who want to try lots of different ones, because you still get the same idea of collecting and wanting to try a load of different ones. Like just going for the 0 version of an existing beer isn't as exciting as finding the true original brands.
That's an interesting take. That is an interesting take. I mean, you can understand the reasons behind Brewdog doing what they've done, because those names are very well established. So you put the alcohol-free version out on your Tesco shelves, and people know what they know what it's going to taste like, more or less. Obviously, taking the alcohol out of a product will differ it slightly. Got to be honest, I've not tried any of them. I'm not a big fan. Well, in all fairness, actually, myself and Gaz, one Christmas we did our public spirited bit, and we taste tested some 0% beers. And actually, I think the one that we thought was best was a stout. Actually, may very well have been that. I think it was a chocolate stout, and I got to tell you, it wasn't too bad. I could have drank it. Not bought it again since, like, you know what I mean? I'll go pick myself up an MP stout before I do that, but. I couldn't tell you they weren't too bad. You know, I've got a very patient wife who generally will drive because she knows I'm going to want a beer.
I think that's the thing. Like, yeah, I've drank a load of low-nos. I did a year dry a couple of years back, and so I tried a fair few. And the ones to me that had the best flavor to them was something that wasn't really relying on that ethanol alcohol taste that you get. So those that are like a stout or a wheat beer or a fruit beer that had another flavor that almost kind of overrode what you normally assume is the alcohol flavor. You just went, that's better. because you're not looking for the alcohol taste, you're looking for the grapefruit, like you say, Elvis juice, for example, there, or something which just has something more identifiable in a taste. And so those are the ones that I lean to when I'm drinking a no alcohol beer.
Yeah, and this is the thing with beer now, and I'll come back to the Guinness bit in a little bit because I did want to talk to you about that. But I do know, sorry, that you've got an episode or something that you're doing soon on Friday where you're looking at Vault City and you're looking at sour beers. And just with you mentioning the different flavors of beers, seemed like an appropriate place to touch on that one. Did you want to tell us, first of all, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about and what you're going to be looking at, and then tell us a little bit about those Vault City beers that I saw you sharing out on your channel.
Yeah, for sure. So it's important to make the separation because there's kind of two shows that I get involved in. So the first one is Branding for Breweries, and that's the podcast. That's my professional hat, asking the hard-hitting questions and helping breweries to kind of thrive and survive through their branding marketing. God, you can tell I've said that a load of times. But the other thing I do is on the odd Friday at 8 o'clock, me and a couple of other beery content creators get together, have too many cans live on Instagram and just review and chat about them. And that's what you're talking about. So on Friday night, we've got a collective called Sud Buds. Very clever. Branding. There you go, everyone. It works. And four of us are getting together online and we're all taking part. Well, we're all enjoying 3 different cans from Vault City. Now, Vault City are well known for creating peculiar beers, I think is the best way to put it. Sour beers mainly. They do some stouts as well, but predominantly they're known for their sours. And their whole thing is to create beers that do not taste like beers most of the time. I posted about the 3 that I'm going to be sampling on Friday. It's called their Marvelous Liquids Creation. And it is inspired by Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. There is the Chocolate River Stout, which is a 12% chocolate stout. There is Fizzy Lifting Juice, the Ultimate Gobstopper, like these all things that you would have read straight out of a Roald Dahl book. But the descriptions are like, cherry, white chocolate, caramel, or there's a thick slushy sour in there. And they are epic because they're just so different. Like they recently released a Crunchy Bar Stout. There's another one as well. I think it was a caramel bar one. Just real kind of nostalgic, hit you in the feels, what you probably would have had in your lunchbox, but it wasn't a beer at the time. And they've turned it into a sour beer. And I think it's a really wonderful approach to how you can modernize a brewery and create something very different, because that's more experiential. You know what I'm saying about, doing something that people get involved in and kind of really love and be part of. That conjures up a lot more of a conversation than just sitting there and sipping your normal beer. It's going to be like, oh, what are you drinking? Oh, this is the strawberry and cream sour. And they're like, oh, hang on a minute, let's have a taste of that. And you're going to talk about it. You just have to.
Oh, listen, I love Vault City. I love just about everything they do. That DDF Mars Bar one that they did as well a couple of months back, or maybe about 12 months ago now. Absolutely phenomenal. The stupid beers that they did, where literally it was so thick that when you poured it out, you'd pour out of a 440ml can and it'd be flowing over the top of a pint glass. It made no sense whatsoever, and there were these bizarre colors, and they taste great. And I do love a sour beer. I absolutely, like you say, they don't taste like beer, and that's my question really. What they are beers, but at what point does it stop being a beer when you take it, to the nth degree? And I'm not knocking anything the Vault City do because I absolutely love them.
I mean, it's subjective, isn't it? Really, because you're going to have a load of people going, "Well, that's not beer." When you look at the Vault City stuff, and fair enough, that's not your beer. And I think that's the difference. Like, when is it your beer and when is it not your beer? I've only relatively recently got into sours myself. I've never been a massive sour flavor fan, but Vault City, they managed to ride the scale of where it's not overly sour at all, to be honest. There's actually the brewing technique, which is the souring aspect. So when it's not a beer, it's when it doesn't respect the brewing approach, I suppose. If you want to get down to the scientific nature of it, there are some core fundamentals you must include to create a beer, and it has to be done in a particular way. If you remove one of those elements or you don't do it, then you're not making beer, you're making something else.
I had to ask because Gaz, who's not on the podcast tonight, absolutely hates sour beers and takes the piss out of me something wrong whenever I'm drinking them. Now I've got a cupboard in my kitchen which I have, you know, if I see a beer, I'll pick it up and it goes in the cupboard. And I'll drink it on a podcast because I'm on beer 396 different beer that I've drank while doing a podcast tonight. And I like this. So I've got a cupboard full, probably of about 300 more. The wife goes absolutely mad at me because it just gets full. It's like, no, you have to get your KitchenAid out there. That's going to have to go in the garage because I need to put some more beer in here, get it shifted. but yeah, there's a load of Vault Cities in there. First of all, they're great to keep as well when I do buy them in because they've always got such great dates on them. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Oh, God, speaking of phenomenal,
That's phenomenal.
Gee whiz. And so, and they're crowdfunding at the moment, aren't they? Because they're looking at expanding.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. So, actually, I had a buddy of mine who just I think he picked up nearly like 150 quid's worth of Vault Seat stuff and paid 75 quid for it and got a free T-shirt and a voucher off the next time. They just know how to do marketing and branding. Like, if you were to ask me like about who's doing it well, Vault City are up there. The same approach, the same technique could be applied to a brewery that doesn't do sour beer, by the way. Like, you don't have to be doing the bloody Iron Brew Imperial, sour in order to make it work. There are loads of ways to like dip into nostalgia and rock it. But these guys, they're going from strength to strength. It will not be long until you start to see them going overseas as well. They've got a couple of like wholesalers, but it's a matter of time before they're a big name all over the shop, because I've got connections who work, who are buyers for some of the big supermarkets and things like that. And they're going, you watch this summer. Like, it's the summer of the Radler. It's the summer of the fruit beer. It's going to be those people who don't want ciders anymore because they're too sweet and they want somewhere in between the beer and the cider. They're just going to make bank over this summer, I should imagine, if the weather stays good.
Wow, let's hope it stays like it is at the moment, because I tell you what, if for no other reason, I'm away the week after next. So it'd be nice if it stays for that. But yeah, but those I agree with you. I think those beers are just about at lifting point. So I'm going to be in Edinburgh next, I think February or March time is when I'm planning on being up there next. My cousin coming over from Texas, so bad news, Bo. When you come over, pal, I'm afraid he hates them sour beers, but he's going to be drinking it in summer whether he likes it or not, because we need to pay a visit to that brewery. So one of the other topics there, we'll circle back a little bit to Guinness. So you spoke to London Black as well on your regular podcast as well, didn't you? Tell us a little bit about that brand and how people identify geographically, I suppose, with that.
Yeah, so the brewery is Ansbach and Hobday, and they brew London Black, which is what has almost been named the Guinness killer, not by them, but by the community and the people who drink it in London. And it's a fascinating chat, and I absolutely loved it because it connects with so much with what I do with my clients, with kind of the storytelling and narrative. But if I try and condense it in a little bit, it all started over COVID, where they actually had time to think about, well, we got a nitro stout, and they had a normal naming convention in a way that they, everything looked and what they called it, and it was the IPA, the stout. It's very Ronseal, you know what you're getting. But they wanted to change it. They wanted to think about, how can we anchor this in London? And I mean, ultimately, the idea of a porter is, it was born in London. It's what, the porters on the train used to drink. It was, it was just, it flows through the veins of London. Ultimately, if you go back in history, look in Dickensian times, it's all there. It keeps on popping up in left, right, and center. And they were like, it's mad that the number one drank black liquid here in London is Guinness, which comes from Ireland. And realistically, the recipe, like the origins of that type of beer is London. So we want to give that back. We want to bring it back. And so hence they landed on London Black. And it was phenomenal how almost like the London drinking culture embraced it. It's a great liquid, really, really enjoyable beer. Definitely stands toe to toe, if not better than Guinness, in my opinion. But the fact that it is from London, it became almost like a bit of a touristy thing now. Like, if you're going to go to London, you want to have a London Black, right? You know, I've got people I chat to in the States going, oh, I'd love to be able to get my hands on a London Black. It's like, good luck me sending one out to you, mate, because that's not going to happen, is it? But then they've been really clever with, you know, kind of embracing the visuals. And, you know, do you remember over Christmas with the Guinness shortage and things like that?
Yeah.
That helped them out. You know, it was never there. They never wanted to be the David to the Guinness Goliath, as it were. But having that kind of enemy, I suppose, has really, really helped in their favor, where people are championing London Black now. They've kind of, it's, people are carrying it forward much more than the brewery needs to these days. And I think again, you know, their produce now is like 80% London Black. They've got other beers. They do lots of other good stuff, but it's 80% London Black, and they've just done it right, and it works. And not every brewery can do it. Like, you're not going to bring out the Hull Pilsner or the Slough IPA, because clearly it just doesn't have the same heritage and history to it.
You get that marketed by David Brent, though, a Slough IPA. I'll be on board with that.
Yeah, maybe, I suppose it's a Christmas special. You can see it working a little bit. But do you know what I mean? Like, if they've done it right, they just landed on this wonderful combination of like location, culture, history, heritage, and like all the boxes lined up. And you're like, you've done it great. And the fact they had a great liquid, then it just completes it. It's a brilliant brand, great thinking, and all done in-house, that thinking. Like, they had an agency help with their visuals to get the brewery up and running. But the London Black stuff, that was all them. It's amazing.
Oh, fair play. Got to be honest, it's something I've not had a pint of, but I can promise you this: the next time I am down in London, but I don't know when that will be, I'll be having a pint of that. Normally we're down at least once a year for the NFL game down there, but I think this year we're over to Dublin, so it'll be a different pint of black for us because the Steelers are playing the Vikings over in Croke Park in Dublin in September, so we want to be at that. So in terms of the Guinness market as well, it's huge. And you can understand, like, if you can chip a percentage off of what Guinness are making, then, you know, that's still a pretty sizable market. And a couple of other people as well have had a go at it recently with Blackheart from Brewdog. You know, Conor McGregor's Forged obviously fell down a little bit because of his personal life. But there's a few places that have had a pop at that and seen what Guinness are doing and thought, you know what, we can do a little bit of that. You know, and we did a taste test on the podcast. We did a blind taste test to see if we could pick out which was Guinness original, which was Forged, and which was Blackheart. And we picked Forged as our favourite, funnily enough. And the only one that me and Gaz actually got right was the Guinness no alcohol. I'm ashamed to say we got all the others bloody wrong. But yeah, we've got another episode of that coming up soon with some different ones, some Murphys and a few different things. But those breweries having a pop at those, you know, they're never going to take down Guinness. I don't believe they are too big of a giant, but there's a little bit to be chipped away, isn't there?
Yeah, and you can't blame them for trying to ride the coattails of what is quite possibly the most respected and biggest brewery name out there. If it isn't the one, it is one of them. Like, and you look at it from multiple sides. From a content creation perspective, if you ever get into brewery content creation, like reviewing beers, go and look at some of the popular ones. The ones who put a picture of Guinness up there, they're the ones that get the big views, like the big numbers, the big likes, the big engagements, because everyone knows what Guinness is. You don't even need to be a beer drinker, and everyone knows what Guinness is. And Guinness has done so much heavy lifting for the beer world. It's phenomenal. Like, you look at, go back 10 years, the adverts tick after talk, after tick, after talk. Good things come to those who wait. All of those incredible adverts that don't get talked about anymore, that no one has the attention span to watch, they were breaking ground long before anyone else considered really creative advertising. Now you skip forward, celebrity endorsements. Jason Momoa, the guy who's Aquaman, he's all over the shop, seen everywhere with the Guinness, just because it's his favorite Guinness. You know, he's been playing bass with Black Sabbath, just mucking around as a laugh. Kim Kardashian spotted with a pint of Guinness in her hand. The Guinness shortage over Christmas, Split in the G, the only beer that is known to have a visual sign of quality as to how it is poured, how it is served, how it's represented. All of these things are trademarks of a brand that people are they just know about it, and they go, that's a sign of quality. And I can almost feel like a beer kind of nerd by going, well, that's not been poured very well, has it? Because you know it doesn't look right, because it doesn't look like the photos that you've seen, which, like, that's a good one.
No, it's true. The other thing that they did very as well is like you say, you pour it at the angle, you let it sit, and then you pour the last bit as well to get that perfect pint of Guinness. Now, that's such a clever piece of marketing. Like I say, you know what it looks like. You know what a good pint of Guinness looks like. And in truth, it's very clever because the worst part about waiting for a beer is waiting for a beer when someone's pissing around and taking 2 minutes to pour a pint. That is a negative, really, in terms of the beer. However, they've turned it into a massive positive because you know you're getting that quality beer at the end of it. It's such a clever piece of marketing.
It's and now if you look at it, you extrapolate that out, the idea of how do you make the wait an enjoyable experience and bring people along for the ride? Guess who else has done it? Uber. They revolutionized the game because the scariest thing, and you'll find far more intelligent people talk about it than I am online. Uber is so successful because it eliminated the idea of waiting for your cab. You don't know where it is. You don't know when it's going to turn up because you can see it coming. It's the same idea as watching a pint of Guinness settle. You kind of go, because I know that good thing is there. It's good. It's a couple of minutes away, but it's there. Just like your cab around the corner after you've had several Guinnesses. It's the same approach.
Amen. Amen. So one of the things I have to say, we're going to be wrapping it up shortly. We always wrap these things up round about the hour mark. We don't want to overdo a good thing. So I just want to ask you before you go, obviously, you're very passionate about beer. You're very passionate about what you do. If you ever get bored of marketing it and you fancy thinking, do you know what, I can do a better job than all these folks I'm advising. You're making your own beer. What are you marketing and what's your beer brand going to look like? And what type of beer is it?
Oh, dude, I wouldn't. So there's a difference between like I could make the beers that I love. So I love hazies. I love New England IPAs. I love the double IPAs, even a couple of triple IPAs if I don't have to walk anywhere. Um, but if I were to create a brewery, I would want to pull on the nostalgic aspect. So I'm a big music fan, but that's been done time and time again. You look at Signature Brew, you look at the Northern Monk kind of I've forgotten the name of the ones that the Heathen Sounds that they released. Various other places have done that. You've got Elusive Brewery who have tapped into the retro gaming market and doing it so very well with 8-bit. I still think there's space for cinematic film, like brewery crossover, where like some of the best films are converted into what a beer, the beer for that film. Or the other side of things is I'm a big foodie fan. I love barbecuing as well. I'd love to see a brewery that specifically made that beer that you have when you have a steak, that beer you have when you have your burgers, to really tie in with that ritualistic side of it. It's not just a drink, it's an experience. And that's the ones that I'd be looking at. I'd be trying to find that wider thing that you're getting involved in. And then beer becomes an enhancement. Much like you're going to go for a Cobra or Kingfisher when you go for your Indian. There are many other meals out there that you need a drink with.
Yeah, it's a good shout, that is, dude. Food pairings is an interesting one. It is an interesting one. It's something that the wine does very well in terms of the way that that's cleverly marketed as well. And you know what I mean. You know which wines go well with which foods. If you could do that for a bit, I mean, I think you need to charge a premium for those products. You need to be saying this is your A grade. Have this beer with this product. That's me personally. I don't know. But yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. In terms of the cinematic ones, I've seen it done a few times. Like, I love the classic horrors of the 80s. So I forget who made it now, but I had a beer on the podcast a couple of weeks ago themed after They Live. I don't know if you've seen the film there, Roddy Piper and
Oh,
the Evil Dead. Yeah, and the Evil Dead. I forget which brewery
oh
did.
no, Vault City did the Evil Dead trilogy one, didn't they?
Was it Vault City? I can't remember, but I tell you what, no, because it can't be them because it was an IPA and a double IPA and something else.
I
Maybe
want to Google it. I'll check it out later.
yeah, I'll have a look at that through me. If you've ever looked through my Instagram stories, he's on there somewhere. But I tell you what, I was going to buy those regardless what they cost because I love those films and I'm tied into it. And it's part of it's part of my nostalgia, my growing up. And I wanted to taste a beer that just reminded me of that. It had absolutely nothing to do with it, really. I just like the picture on the can, and it was a great tasting beer, so I was on board.
Yeah, well, that's happened to me so many times. I've seen something where I'm like, like the look of that, or I remember that, and I
Yeah.
pick it up. Don't even know what the type of beer is, don't even know what the percentage is until I get it back and take it out of the fridge a couple of weeks later. I'm like, oh no, I didn't even realize. But you got it now. You're going to drink it.
Amen. Amen. And that's it. You know what I mean? If you can tap into people's psyche, the psyche of the people are going to buy your beer. Sometimes attaching yourself to something like that can be a great way to shift some product as well. And hopefully, if it's really good, they'll come back and buy some more. So, Tim, hopefully we're giving people a little bit of a sampler of what you do tonight. And if you want to give yourself a quick shout out as to where people can find your podcast or anything else that you do on social media.
For sure. So if you want to listen to the podcast, just search for Branding for Breweries on all of your favorite podcast channels. You can find me on Instagram, Branding for Breweries. You can find me on LinkedIn, The Brand Weaver. Go to thebrandweaver.co.uk for my website, sign up to the newsletter. And yeah, just you'll find me by searching for The Brand Weaver ultimately. But reach out. I'm always going for a chat. Even if you're not a brewery and you want some help with branding and marketing and you just want to kind of run a few ideas past me, I'm a friendly guy. I like a chin wag, so go for it.
And I can tell you that. So I started following Tim on Instagram and he was following me at the same time. And actually, funnily enough, I was at gin tour when I was messaging you. Yeah, I was doing the gin tour of 6 towns in Stoke.
No way.
Yeah, it was a good day as well. Actually, a really good day. And yeah, very affable fellow. I've really enjoyed talking to him tonight. We'll stick some links in the show notes for this podcast so you know where to find some of his stuff. We'll definitely put the website in there. And if I can remember the other stuff, I'll add it in as well. But I've had a few beers and it's quite late on a Wednesday evening. But thank you very much, Tim. Really appreciate you spending some time with us. It's been a fascinating talk. And I feel like I've learned a lot. And some of the things I might just go and apply to this podcast as well and market it a little bit better. And who knows, we might get somebody to listen to us.
Beans, mate, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care.